Welcome to the RVA Returners Podcast, your weekly source for all things Final Fantasy TCG.
Yeah, but no, it seemed like it was a lot of fun just from the outside looking in, and I definitely want to be there next year. Like, that's not going to change.
Yeah, I plan to go next year too.
Yeah, timing on this one was just rough because I got a lot of messages of people just being like, "Hey, are you here? Are you coming?" And I was just like, "Nah, sorry." But you know what I'm not sorry about, Adam? That we're back for the next episode of the RVA Returners Podcast, guys. Once again, thanks for listening. I'm here, as always. I'm your host, Chris Adams, and with me, also, as always, is my co-host, Adam Lane. Adam, say hi to everybody.
Hello. I'm kind of sick. So.
Oh, no, man. What happened? You feeling? I was sick earlier in the weekend, man. I had a little stomach bug. You feeling sick there, big guy? You need some soup?
I mean, I'm good, but, it's definitely hitting me a little bit, but I'm fine.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Good to hear. We can't have sick folks running around here. But, we got a lot to talk about today, Adam. FanFest was this weekend. We got some more spoilers. We saw some new saucy promos. There was a Japanese event. We got 2 petite cups coming up. But, there's only one place where you can kind of get all this information covered at once. According to my watch, it's either 11 a.m. or 6 o'clock. And you know what happens at those 2 time, Adams, at least in the 80s and 90s? You know what happens at those 2 times?
I do not.
You don't know? Well, I'm about to tell you. It's the news. All right, so, I said there was a couple saucy promos. Obviously, it's February. I believe Yuna, the full art 5CP Yuna, is the February promo, correct?
Yeah, she's out now. Some stores have her. I don't know if Battlegrounds has her yet, but they said they might have gotten her when I was there on Tuesday. So
awesome. So we'll see. We'll check that out for Tuesday so we can have Yuna promos for everybody. But then there was another promo, which I believe is for next month.
Yeah, it got shown.
Yeah, it's a full art Camelot. I am okay with this.
Yeah, it looks really good. My only thing about Cam is his foil's not great.
Yeah,
but the card is great, and it's definitely super playable. And it looks good as a full art. So
yeah, I think they're really knocking it out of the park with these full art cards. They're beautiful to look at, and they've all been like playable cards, like the Noctis box topper, the Cloud box topper coming up. I know the Champion promo was the 5 CP Barch. That's a super playable card. Yuna, still super playable. Camelot, obviously super playable. So I like how these promos have kind of turned a corner. You know what I mean?
Well, so I will say this unit is worse than the other unit. If you
of course.
If you want to be fair.
Of course.
Right, released right now.
Sure, as far as as the overall in the meta, but I think if you're still playing if you're playing like Chaos Walker and like 4 CPs a day, and you're still seeing this unit pop up in Wind Water builds that are more of the standard unit kind of builds.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's what people are doing, and the card's still very playable. So, good promos coming up. I like how they've turned the corner here. And then, of course, right into that, we got a lot of spoilers again this week, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I expected it. The FanFest and the panel, I was like, there's no way they're not going to do multiple spoilers.
Of course.
Yeah, so.
Now, I know we were talking about there, some news that they were supposed to be, we thought could be coming out of FanFest, or Fanfare, I guess is what it was called. But a lot of that came sooner, and I was thinking more like this was like the deadline for Crystal Cup announcements, but they nailed that like a month ago.
Yeah.
So what better way than to continue spoiler season than showing new spoilers? But we'll get to those. The first one was the card of the week this week.
Yeah. The card of the week was Squall. He's actually a seed candidate this time, so that means he's searchable by Selfie. He's a 4 CP AK. When he enters the field, if your opponent controls any dull 4s, they have to discard a card. And then he has an ability for Ice, and 1 colorless, choose a 4, dull it, and you can only use this ability if you have no cards in hand.
Man, I don't know how I feel about this one. I'm kind of on the fence, right? I don't think it's great because I feel like the other 2 Squalls. This guy's like an amalgamation of what the other 2 Squalls do, but they kind of do it better. Like the other 4 CP, if you play him in Laguna, they're going to pitch 2 cards, and then you've got 2 9K, staring down. But the other one, if I have no cards in hand, I'd much rather have an 8K Haster with First Strike. So I don't know. I can maybe see where this one would see play, but I don't know how I feel about it yet.
I think people are giving this card a bit of a hard time. I think this is like one of the first like actual balanced discard cards that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest comparison I can make for this card is actually the starter Sarah, the old one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the closest thing to this. Like the last ability, you're not going to use that often. I mean, sure, if it's going to win you the game and you have no cards in hand, because you can't pitch to it, right? You can't even
because you can't even use it if you've got cards in hand.
Yeah, so that 3 CP has got to come all from backups, which means you're playing like a tempo-y discard game, which is fine. Most of the time, this guy's going to come down and make you discard a card. So like really, even though it's like the discard is situational, I guess really it's going to almost always happen. Like.
Right, and maybe you can set up his S ability with, like, if you play the new 2CP Palom, make both players discard a card. Now you've got no cards in hand. Then you do that, swing through a Squall to win the game.
I mean, I think he's okay. I think he's decent and limited. I think he's okay. And if like Sarah sees play, there's no reason why this can't see play. To be honest, Sarah is a 3CP 6K that makes you discard. Like this is a 4CP 8K that's like 90% of the time gonna make you discard. So like. Is that really that much worse than Sarah, who sees play? And I mean, I guess the only thing you can argue for Sarah is you're probably already playing Mog 13 because of Orphan and Sid Reigns. But like this guy, I'd say his power level's about on par with that card.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the other side of the fence. I'm giving this card a hard time. Like I'm not like bashing it, but I don't know if this is what Ice needs right now.
I mean, I'm not saying it's what it needs. It definitely doesn't need more big forwards, which we'll talk about in a second. But like,
yeah, no shit.
Like 4CP is pretty crowded. Devout is a great backup, and this is not that great of a Devout target. I think maybe if you're playing like Selfie or if some list somehow becomes good with Selfie in it, and you're playing Zell, this might be something worth looking at. I don't think that's going to become good. I mean, I just don't think he's terrible. I think he's like fine.
I think he's average. Like I say, I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's a card that's really on my radar. Now, again, if we see more cards that maybe, some more 8 cards, like say we get like a Laguna or something that maybe plays well with his effect or something.
I actually think the Searcher Laguna, this isn't a terrible target for him. Like, it's not bad. I mean, if you're not going super all in on discard, then this is probably better than the 2CP. And if you're not trying to like vomit stuff out and maybe you don't care about the 9K as opposed to the 8K, it might be okay. It's like an in-between, right? Like, I think it's fine.
Yeah, and we'll see where it ends up. Like, not about it, but we'll see. Like I said, there's still a lot of set left, and I try to hold judgments for cards like this like completely until the set's out and we see what people are doing with it and what other cards in that element or what complements it. So, but right now, it's not my favorite.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be mad at anybody for saying I'm probably not gonna play it in a deck. I just think that people that are saying it's like terrible, it's not terrible. That's all I'm saying. Like.
We've seen terrible cards.
There's very few cards in this game that are actually like trash. Like, I mean, there are a few, but like, it's not that many.
Yeah, they're fewer and far between than most other card games. That's for sure.
Yeah, most stuff's at least pretty playable. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, moving on to the spoilers from FanFest. Where do we want to start with these? Do we want to just kind of go down the order that they were?
No, I'm gonna actually save the one I want that I think both of us want to talk about for last. So
yeah, that's fine. No, 100%.
So I'll start with Raiden. So Raiden is a 4CP lightning summon. It's not 6, it's a Mobius summon, which kind of sucks. But I mean, I guess like probably not playing this in the title anyways. But maybe you would. You can only pay with CP produced by backups to cast Raiden. So it seems like might be a theme in this set.
Yeah, it seems like last set we had a cycle of summons that got better off the EX burst. I feel like I bet you all the summons in this set are going to have to be played by backups.
I hope not, because I kind of think that sucks. And
yeah, that's what it's pointing at though, and that's unfortunate.
But its effect is good, right? Choose on forward, break it.
Yeah, there's no cost restriction on it. It is kind of held back by the same thing that holds back the Bahamut, the fact that you have to pay with backups, so you have to commit those backups to that summon to play it.
Yeah.
So you have to be at 4, and you have to commit to, if you want to do anything else other than that summon, it has to come from your hand. So it's a good effect. It is a good effect, but I feel the same way about each of these summons we've seen so far. just by themselves, I think it's a lot to do, or it's a lot to pay to play this summon to potentially break something. The fact that you can't pitch card from your hand and really manage your resources that way does kind of hurt. But it's one you can cheat using like Minwoo or something.
Yeah, it's got some cute applications.
Yeah.
I think this card's worse than the Squall we just talked about, honestly.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think both of the summons we've seen with this set so far are not great.
But like, yeah, I mean, if you're playing like a Minwoo deck, it's pretty good. But the thing is, like, Minwoo has to live, right? Like, if you say you play, okay, so first off, I don't think Minwoo decks are that great. I know people have like messed with them. I've tried to mess with them myself. I like the idea of them, but like, there's just better stuff to play right now. Say you play a Minwoo, right? This flips off the top. You put it in your hand, okay? You wait a whole turn to try to attack with your Minwoo to play this for free, and then they kill your Minwoo. Like, yeah. And now you're sitting with this in your hand and you can't play it. Like,
and you've got like one backup, and it's just like, well, yeah, that's my problem. Because there are some decks that, you know, once you get to two backups, that's all you need for a little bit, and then like I'm not gonna. Yeah, and I don't like having to waste all of my backups to play one card. That's the whole concept of the resource management in this game, being able to use both at any time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also, like, I think the Opus 1 4CP Odin hits most things that you want to hit right now anyways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's just a better card.
And most people aren't playing a lot of 5 CPs because Diabolus is running around everywhere.
Yep.
So this isn't really going to hit many things that you care about.
That other Odin can't already just kill, and I can tap 2 and pitch a card from my hand to play it.
Yeah, and someone asked me, I think it was Johnny asked me the other day, if I would play this card over a 7 CP Odin, and I don't think I would.
No, not at all. Yeah, so I think it's not great.
Yeah, and then so the next card we'll talk about. Let's talk about Tifa next, I guess. So
I'm excited about this one too.
She's a 4 CP Earth forward. Obviously category 7. If you control a card named Cloud, she's cost reduced by 2. She has Brave, and then she has an S for S Earth Dole. Choose a Dole forward, deal at 10k.
I think this card's fantastic. I think this Tifa is actually. I think it's this man. I think this might be the best Tifa.
Yeah, probably. The fire one is still pretty decent, but I think the only reason that people were really playing the fire one is because like it was a really good target for Zangan. If you were playing Zangan back then. And I think this card with Zangan is really nuts. You might run both. I don't know. But I think I would rather run this one in Earth Fire. Maybe you're running the other one as like S fodder / like if you really need Water Kick or something. Because you don't really mind running both since they both have S abilities.
Yeah, I could easily see like a 3-1 split or something like that.
But this, if you play Cloud and you play this for 2, and you're playing a Haste Brave 8k for 2, that's pretty good.
That's really good. Absolutely.
So
and the S is very relevant. Like the S is extremely relevant.
Yeah, it's just one of those S's where like it's not super expensive and it does something decent, so you'll probably see it from time to time. But it's not like you're not really playing her for the S, you know. But like yeah, I mean, it's gonna see like
it's very doable.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're gonna see it is what I'm saying. Like if she sees play, you're gonna see the S. And worst case, even if this card ends up not being that great in standard because 7 isn't a great standard deck, this is 100% gonna see play in title.
Like, absolutely it is. So. Absolutely. So I think it's a fantastic card, and I know we'll kind of talk about more about what maybe things we want to do with this card later on in the cast. But I think it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, worst case, I'm getting 3 foils, and I'm probably playing this in title. So
yeah, there it is. There it is.
Yeah. So then the next one's a legendary. So we got the Ice legendary.
Yep. Beautiful mono art.
Yeah, Dark Fina. She costs 7, so she's a 7 CP 9k, which is very expensive. When she enters the field, select one of 2 following actions. If you've received 5 points of damage or more, select 2 of the 2 following actions. I don't know why they just couldn't say do both or something instead. Yeah. But search for 1 summon, add it to your hand, and then cast 1 summon of cost 7 or less from your hand without paying the cost.
All right, so I'm kind of mixed on this one because I think it can be just a late game ball buster because it's not limited to ice summons. Like you could literally, you're on the ropes, you can play this, search for Raiden, and play it.
Well, you can't play. You mean the new Raiden?
No, the old one.
Oh, the Raiden. It's
because
7
it says
or
any
less.
summon, right?
You can search for Raiden, but the free is 7 or less.
No, well then forget that. Then this card's bad. Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah,
Yeah, this card's shit.
you can only play Phoenix. Like, I mean, Phoenix is
Oof.
probably the best thing, but yeah, you can't play Raiden off this. I mean, you could search for Raiden, but you can't play the Raiden.
No, that's lame. Okay, never mind. And to pile on that negative, does Ice really need another 6+ forward? They've already got like Sephiroth, Orphan, Ultimecia.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. Although, I mean, like, if you're running some payoff cards for this card, which you are if you're playing it, right? Renoing this probably is pretty good on 5, right? I mean, if you can get 2 Phoenixes. Like, if you can play a 7, like, if you have a 7 CP and it sticks, right, or something, and then you Renoa this on 5 damage, you get to cast, like, 2 Phoenixes. Or play this with a Devout, I guess. Like, say you're on 4 backups, one's a Devout. Play this card, go get Phoenix, play Phoenix, Devout Renoa, Dark Fina, play another Phoenix, like 2 8K things, and then you get 2 more 3 drops. I mean, that could be pretty good. But the thing is, like, I think she's just I think the thing that might save her and let her see some play is you only need to run 1 of this card, really. Like, you don't need to find room for multiples of this card.
Yeah, like Orphans and Sephiroth, you're running 2 or 3 of each.
Yeah, I think you could just run 1. And then, you know, the thing is, like, if you're building your deck around her, you obviously would have to run more than 1. And then I think it starts to feel more and more bad. You also need to have payoff cards for her to be good. So then that means you're running, like, bigger summons, which Ice currently doesn't have. So maybe we get one, I don't know. But, like, currently, like, what's the best big Ice summon? Hades? Like,
yeah, that doesn't feel great.
So you're probably playing her in, like, some Ice X deck that can abuse it, which means, I mean, the one off the top of my head is probably Fire, but, like, there's some other things I guess she could cast off of this that aren't bad. And, I mean, maybe if you want to get really saucy, you can just run the summons off color, but...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not with it. I just that 7 limitation, and like the thing is, like all like that massive play you just said, where you do that, get a Phoenix. Like one Y'shtola is just like, nah, you can't do that.
Well, so
you cancel one of those abilities, and you're like, well, okay.
Yeah, she only can cancel 1 though. So I mean, that's 4 autos going off, right? And 2 summons. She can't cancel all that stuff. So worst case, you're still getting 1 Phoenix and casting it, and you're gonna get a 3 CP, a 7 CP, and a 4 CP on the board, even if she cancels one of those things. Granted, that's like you have to be set up to do that. Like,
no, granted too, Ice does play the long game.
Yeah, I mean,
so maybe I don't see it, but you know, I know some people are really high on it.
My biggest issue is that you have to run payoff cards for her. So like, Ice is already like you said, they're running these big dudes, and they're all pretty good. And they play well with Renoa for the most part.
Yeah.
And she does that, but then the thing is, like, even though you only have to put 1 of her in the deck, you have to already be running summons that she can abuse. Because, like, if you're paying 7 CP to play her to go get, like, Glacia, like, I mean, if it's winning you the game, it feels great, but, like, are you really going to run her just for that situation? Like,
yeah, because I feel like you can just run the other big payoff cards and just win the game off of those. Like even like Ultimecia from the 2-player starter deck.
Yeah, because you only really have to run 1 or 2 of her also, and she doesn't need a card in your deck to do anything additional. Like that's like while I think the benefit of this card is that you only need to run 1, the other drawback is that you have to run these big summons. Like they have to be in your deck.
And then it's going to feel bad that if you're running these cards and they get flipped on damage, they get plucked from your hand, they get lost before you can even set up and do anything with it. I think it's a lot and a high cost for something that just might not be that good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she's gonna be like in some top tier deck or something, but
no, yeah, Now, if you could do any summon, like I said, I was really excited about maybe being able to play that with like Raiden or something, but
I mean, how often? To be fair, how often is like doing the Raiden play gonna win you the game more than the Phoenix? Like, not super often. So,
but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not excited about this one, and maybe I just don't know because I don't play Ice, but I just think Ice they're so top heavy already.
Well, I think that her home is probably gonna be Fire Ice, right? I feel like that's the best place to play her.
Maybe, but what Fire Ice deck are you playing?
Oh, it's gonna be way different. It's way different, right? You're playing like big. You're playing probably 3 big Phoenixes. You're playing this card, and you're probably playing like a bunch of 3 CPs to try to abuse that. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really made a list, but I'm thinking that's like Phoenix is the best target for her. So
Yeah, like 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the only, maybe a 7-drop Odin, but why?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. Like, you don't want to ever cast that. At least Phoenix, like, you want to cast.
Exactly. So I don't know. Maybe I hope I'm wrong about this one. This is another change my mind kind of card. But right now, I'm I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the last spoil is Archangel HM. It's an 11 card, fire, 3 CP, 6K. If it deals damage to your opponent, double the damage instead. That is to the opponent, not to a character. That's like if it deals damage, it's going to deal 2 instead of 1. And if some other effect somehow is doubling the damage, I guess like this will stack on that, and that's why it's worded that way. When it attacks, it gets plus 3,000 power until end of turn. Pretty simple, straightforward, but really good.
No, you want to talk about a card that Fire needed? This is it. This is one that is the wait is over. We finally got a card that does a really powerful thing, and there is zero drawback. 3 CP, 6K. That's slightly under curve, but the minute you turn him sideways, he becomes a 3 CP, 9K, which is really, really good, and he stays that way for the rest of the turn. He has double strike when he is attacking to the face. That, I'm not gonna lie, Adam, that kind of changes the way the game is played. Like this, like the clock that this game already presents has now been shortened. You can attack with this guy half the time and win the game.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. I do think it's a card that like Fire can like abuse, which is great because it needs a card to abuse. Yep. The only drawback, and it's not really like that much of a drawback, is everything is gonna hit this dude. Like any 3 CP removal that sees play, any 4 CP removal that sees play. Yep. This guy's dead.
And they better have it. They better have it.
Like Glacia is gonna hit this dude before his trigger happens. Rama's gonna hit him before he attacks. I mean, what I'm trying to say is like he's really good, but like he's gonna be kept in check a little bit. Like I think he'll benefit like any other fire cards that are just getting like played and removed, like Lon, I guess. Like he helps those cards because now
they have to choose.
Well, yeah, because if I play Lon and you choose to remove your removal on Lon, and then I drop this guy behind it, and I haste it or something, like now you're forced to have 2 things of removal to be able to deal with my dudes, which is, what makes a good deck, right? You want to have like several threats.
Absolutely.
So that they can't just remove one high value threat and then you have no other more high value stuff, and now you just like look like an idiot.
Yep, and the fact that he becomes a 9K, like when he attacks and he keeps that for the rest of the turn, can make some really cheeky main 2 plays if you're playing like Fire Earth or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. I think he plays really well with some Earth cards. I mean, obviously he's searchable on that element if you want to play Sybil. And then maybe you're talking about playing like Zoyu at that point or something, like things that that your opponent doesn't want to block.
Yep. And he's another card that makes like Falker better.
Yeah, Volker definitely gets a buff from this dude because you're just gonna play Volker behind this guy. Now they thought they had a blocker, but they don't. Or you play this guy after you have a Volker out, you remove a blocker, and then you can haste him or something. Yep. There's a lot of things you can do with him, and he is dangerous. Like I mean, you don't want to get hit by this guy, 100%.
Yeah, especially like late game when if you're playing a fire deck and you've got ninjas out or red mages at the ready, and then you have you play this guy and they're at 5 damage, and you're just like, all right, can't block Belias. That's game. That's literally game.
It's gonna make people because I think he is gonna be almost a staple fire card. I think he's that strong.
Yeah, I agree. It's a card you have to respect for sure.
So you're gonna have to play as soon as you see red cards now. Once the set's out, obviously, you're gonna have to play differently on 5 damage. Because you have to basically treat 5 like 6 if you know this guy's in the deck, and they're probably running like 2 to 3, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. Because I feel like there's no reason not to play 3 this guy in a fire deck. Because another thing too is he's at that magical cost where he's a big Phoenix target too. Imagine doing that like at the end of somebody's turn, and then it's like, well, it's back to you. Do you have an answer for it? No. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're probably going to lose now.
Yeah, they definitely needed better Phoenix targets, and I mean he's a decent Phoenix target. He's not going to do anything immediately, but he is something that they have to be ready for as soon as the Phoenix comes down.
Exactly. This card checks a lot of boxes for me, and I'm glad that Fire has finally gotten a card, and the fact that it's only just an uncommon.
I think that's bad, actually. I think this should be an H. Because I think in limited, like, this guy's gonna be a fucking nightmare.
Unless now you're at 4, and then it's like, well, you're dead.
Unless the removal is good, but if it's all these backup paying stuff for removal, good lord, you're not killing this dude. Like,
yep.
You have to get the 4 backups before I play this guy on turn 2.
Yeah, in draft, if I'm opening packs and I'm in a draft pod, this guy's a pack 1, pick 1 immediately.
Yeah, I mean, now we haven't seen the whole set, so like, it's hard to say for sure, but yeah, I mean,
as of right now, oh yeah.
But like,
if I open a pack and it's my first one and that guy's in it, I'm snap taking it.
Yeah, he's a pretty insane draft card, I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, card's good,
and I think he's pretty good in standard too.
Yeah, I think he will be. I 100% think he will be, and I can't wait to see what the tank comes up with, because I think he's good in a lot of different things, and we'll talk about that. We'll unpack that a little bit more. Next piece of news was there was a Japanese Mijinsen. I'm probably saying that very wrong. We had another qualifier. There's 59 players at this event, and it was won by a mono lightning list that had Flanborg in it. How about them apples?
Yeah, I mean, everything else is pretty standard. Like, this almost looks... This is very similar to the list that I played on Tuesday at our local.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few differences, right? He's running Ramza, I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He's running Onion Knight, I was not. He has Flanborg. I'm never running that card. I mean, even though he won, I mean, that's great. Good for him. And then he's running one of the 1 CP Ramu. I was running Odin's instead. So... everything else is basically the same. I think I had one more Cypher than he had. I'm also running Ewan, because I think it's nice to have a second search target off the Clan Gully if you already have like 2 Aluas in your hand or something. And sometimes Ewan just wins you the game.
Oh, yeah. If they don't have an answer for him, and they can't... I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I think everything else is fairly standard. I think Luiswa Alphino is pretty standard right now in Mono Lightning. I'm running it. I guess he's running a Goltana for the Ramza.
Sure.
I wasn't running that. But basically, Mono Lightning's decent right now. I think my biggest problem is, like, and I posted this on Twitter too, and I talked to Rice about this for a little bit.
Because I know Rice was playing Mono Lightning at the Fanfare 3v3 event.
It just doesn't feel good if you don't get turn 1 Sid Previa. That's my biggest issue with the deck. Like, if you get turn 1 Sid Previa and you have decent follow-up to it, or like an Alua and another backup, like, I mean, you're in control, you're in the driver's seat. But like, if you don't, it just doesn't feel good, and you have to build your deck to be able to hit the Sid, right? So sometimes your hand gets pretty clunky, and you're playing like overpaying for Luiswa and getting an Alphino and mono lighting. That doesn't feel great. Like, but yeah, I mean, it's a decent deck, and it's definitely got some powerful stuff that it can do. And I mean, Alcid's still something you have to play around. Even though a lot of people have more options to it now.
Oh, for sure. But overall, looks like it was a good event. 59 players is always a good amount, and I'd like to see what the rest of the field was, to see what that deck had to play through to get there. And maybe we'll see that at some point. Usually those events have a follow-up article that usually show like the top 4, the top 8.
Yep.
So we'll keep that. And then obviously events on this side. We'll get to the fanfare, but we got the New York Petite Cup this weekend coming up. Adam, did you decide if you're going or not yet?
I'm probably not going. I don't even know if it's filled up at this point, but I haven't signed up. And
yeah, because I know they added 8 more spots. Last week?
Something like that. So it's like up to 40.
Yeah, so it was already a tight squeeze. Now it's going to be even tighter. I'll be there, and I have just one. If you could cue the Sarah McLachlan song, please. I implore everybody to please deodorant up. Be fresh. Take a shower that morning. We're going to be close quarters combat. I need people to not stink.
Yeah.
If they could just do that for me, I'd be incredibly happy.
Yeah, and then the week after that, we have the RVA Petite Cup, which I will be.
Yeah, that's going to be a little one. I know we've already crossed 70 for pre-reg, right?
Yeah, I think we're like 75 now.
Nice. Like that's going to be a solid event. So, if you haven't pre-reg, still's your chance to do it. We'd love to hit like the 90 to 100 mark. We got some fantastic prizes, and we'll just show you that that RVA hospitality if you come on through. So if you're on the fence and you're not sure if you want to come, take our word for it. Come on down. We'll take care of you. So now the last bit of news we have. So fanfare was yesterday, and we what am I trying to say here? We had we a lot of people took pictures. It looked like it was a really, really fun event. From the outside looking in, I think they did a fantastic job. There were a few events. They had a title tournament. They had a 3v3 unified event. They had this new format they were really pushing called Boss Fight. Apparently just really sick prizes at every turn. So, Adam, as far as the things you saw, let's kind of unpack this fanfare. This was the first time they've ever done this, so I expect, moving forward, it'll probably be bigger and more, grandiose. What were your thoughts just overall? Just from the pictures, from the people we were talking to all day yesterday that were there, what were your thoughts on the event?
I mean, it looked like a great time.
Sure.
Sucks that you have to fit it all into one day, but
yeah,
I think it looked like a lot of fun. I would have liked to have gone if the stars aligned, but next year for sure. Boss fight looks like a fun time too. Maybe like a thing if you want to take a break. I hope they release the lists actually, like the boss lists, because like they had specific cards that have different prints on them, like an Odin that said break 3 forwards, stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think if you're just looking for like a fun thing, and maybe I don't know if they're going to use this to replace gunslingers in the future, but I mean, I guess it can kind of help die down the lines a little bit because you're filtering in 3 people at one time. You're still giving them prizes. They still feel like they're having a fun time, even though it's a little bit different of a game.
Now, I'm glad you said that about Boss Fight, about them having these cards that have different printings on them. Where again, there's a product in Magic, not to call back to the grandfather of all card games, but they have a product very similar to this called Arch Enemy or Arch Nemesis, I believe is what it's called. And it's 3 decks versus 1 deck. That is, the 1 deck is obviously, built to beat 3 people at once, and there's cards specifically for that. And you have like this side deck that creates like a field effect. That's what this reminds me of. And remember how last week we were talking about like supplemental products and potential for those? How awesome would it be if they released a Boss Fight, just board game style box set with there's 4 precons in it, and the Boss Fight deck is obviously built to do that, and then you just got this kind of in-box experience for that format. I think that's something that, obviously not now, but down the road, if it becomes something that really takes off, now you've got like just an already pre-made rules in-box, something you can just unpack, start a game with 3 of your friends, and now you've got just a fun game night experience. So there's always that. Now I'll let you continue.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could do that in the future, and like I said, it looks like a lot of fun. I guess I'll talk about like the rules for like a second.
Yeah.
The boss starts on the field with a Chaos, a Spiritus, and then any dark forward of their choice. So you're kind of building around certain stuff. I actually like it makes some cards better, right? Like 5 CP Emperor, it's actually pretty good. Elder Narsh, pretty good. Because those are things that are like really hard to remove turn 1. Like even if they turn, I saw Shoto was playing one where he started with Shadow Lord, and one of the 3, I guess they were calling like Warriors of Light. One of the 3 party members did a turn 1 Fanfrit, Yuna Fanfrit. I was like, oh okay, good. Sorry. Yeah, but it was cool to watch people like work together, do plays that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise because you got 3 people on your team, and then you're talking through plays. It was also pretty sweet when some of the bosses had like 10 backups on the field because the limit for them was 10. They also drew 4 cards every turn, so their hands were always massive. So you had these like swingy things, and then anything that targets like one player actually hits like all the players. So like things like Sid Randall, like a tax effect, like every player has to pay 1 for each forward that comes into play.
And then I know Galdez, if you did the discard at random, they all had to discard at random. I remember seeing that happen on stream.
And I think like even if you play a Nidhogg, like it'll remove 1 forward, but then every player will have to discard at random also. So I mean, it's got some pretty cool things. Obviously, I feel like if the players had built their deck just to beat like dark cards and stuff, I feel like the boss probably wouldn't have a great time. And I didn't see the boss winning a lot of games actually, because I mean, even though it's built for it, like it's hard to stop 3 people with their hand. Like if 3 people kind of know what they're doing, I feel like it's gonna be hard to stop 3 people from dealing 7 damage to you before 1 player, even with 10 backups. But like there were some swingy turns where like they would play Nidhoggs or Sin and wipe everybody's board.
Absolutely. Which is why I think having like a pre-made boxed product that's already kind of balanced, that, obviously the better player could come out on top on either side of the board. I think that'd be a fun little thing to do because I enjoyed watching it for a little bit at a time because for me, like it's just like that's a total beer and pretzels format, like 100%.
Oh yeah, it's not competitive at all. Because honestly, like the more I think about the format, like I could probably break it pretty easily. But it's not meant to be played that way. It's meant for like fun to sit down, play against one of the Hobby Japan guys, team up with two friends, and like strategize and play. Probably with a deck that you just happen to bring, right? You're not gonna. But like if you built a deck specifically for this, or you built a threes team specifically for this, obviously like I don't think it's gonna be really hard for the boss to even have a shot. And I do agree with you that while I enjoyed seeing it on stream, after the first like 3, like I could have watch something else.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good segue. Like I kind of feel the same way. I think when we have these other events, there was a title event and a 3v3 unified event. I think showing some boss fight matches would have been great, just to kind of let people see what it's all about. But I think other people were still interested in the title tournament and the 3v3. There's no reason like the finals of each of those couldn't have been streamed. At least the finals, or maybe do a couple boss fights, kind of get some title matches in, then maybe a 3v3 match. Just kind of bounce back and forth maybe. But I think at least showing the finals of those other 2 events would have been just a really just solid way to let people see what all was going on in the events.
Yeah, and I think both those tournaments were single and.
Yeah, they were all bracket style. I know the title tournament had 18 people, and Serena DeCanto, I'm probably saying her last name wrong. I know she won with Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see like what the field was actually.
I am too, and that's the thing. Like, I would like to see what the entire field was, or at least like the majority of the field, because I think Tactics is a good deck. I just do think it has a hard time against like the better decks.
Yeah, I mean, but it can win. It's good.
For sure.
It's good enough to win. Yeah.
Yeah, it plays a very fair, fun, interactive game of Final Fantasy. And then after that, I know the 3v3 event. I know I don't know the names of the people who won. I know it was like some Cali locals, but they beat Steven, Rice, and Alejandro in the finals.
Yeah, I heard there was a A02 promo up for grabs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I heard the prizing for this thing was just absolutely nuts. Like just play arts here. Obviously, you got a really dope swag bag just for showing up. It had like the black tote bag, the WAF playmat, full art Yuna, like a little stamp card, because apparently there was some sort of little stamp thing going on, I guess, for
they do that.
Yeah,
they do that in the 14 Fan Fest too, I think. Like you, when you go to like different tables, they'll stamp your card or whatever, and then like I think usually you'll win something if you have a bunch of stamps.
Nice.
So like the more booths or whatever you visit, and the more stamps you get, like you'll get like some sort of prize usually, or maybe it was just like a memento type thing, like hey, I got all the stamps,
Yeah, and then the other thing, one of the other big things is there was a Q&A panel with Kageyama, RB, and I apologize, I guess the young lady that was up there with them.
Yeah, I don't remember her name. I want to say she does some of the Final Fantasy 14 stuff. She looks familiar, but I'm not sure if that's her or not.
Yeah, and overall, like they went over some really neat stuff in the panel, and I got it pulled up right here. A fantastic write up got from the Mysidia Post. I just started following their page here, and I think they had a really, really solid summary of that Q&A, and just kind of diving into the mind of just what some of the questions Kageyama answered about one of the things that really caught my eye first was this as far as like testing, how Layla was initially a 5K. Nidhogg removed 2 cards from the hand and then broke a forward. You know what I mean? So like I'm glad to see that they actually do some really in-depth testing in every set.
Yeah, I think Layla at a 5K would have been a bit strong.
No, a little bit.
Yeah, just play with Waka. She's a 6K for 4. That gets you a Viking that's gonna draw 2 cards. That's pretty nutty. The Nidhogg is interesting because I'm not sure if that's better or not. Assuming that break is the right word that they used here, because if it was 2 cards and not remove, then I don't know. I'm not sure which Nidhogg is better.
And then I know they talked about bans and rotations. Obviously, they have no plans or no interest in a rotation, which I think is fantastic. There is a card on their radar that they're looking at, though, and I know it's one that we've talked about before. When we start talking about BNRs and things like that, this card always pops up. This card popped up the first time when we were initially talking about Gesper and Thaumaturge.
Oh yeah, I mean Dotaluma's always going to be a thing unless they do something. I think Yastola's a bigger problem, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I don't think either one should be banned right now. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they say they're keeping their eye on it is great. I think that's a good thing. They also said, like, when building sets, like, if they think of all the formats, and they said they usually do, but that standard is the first priority.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he'll add, like, text to cards that help them in title. Probably, like, a card like Fang or something like that. Or maybe just a card that, like, has an effect, and then a secondary effect is, like, for that category or something.
Yep, absolutely. Like, the Earth Cloud's a great example of that.
Yeah.
And even the Earth Tifa is a great example of that. I think the starter Vaughn from Opus 5 is a great example of that, because that card's only good in title.
Oh yeah, I think there are some cards that are only good in title, but I think he's more referring to cards that are like built for standard, but then they're like, this isn't going to affect standard, but we'll add this line in for title.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then they kind of talked about Fire. Apparently Fire was really, really strong in chapters, and as far as addressing it, Kageyama had his gunslinger list, his mono Fire list, which really, really neat here. I'm a little upset from the lack of Edgar or Sabin, which is that's fine, whatever. Live your best life, Kageyama. I'm not going to judge you.
I mean, I appreciate that he's tried to run a lot of Opus 7 cards.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, I don't like this list, but I
it's
see.
Very top-heavy.
Yeah, I guess he's trying to make the opponent use all their Diabolos so that they're going to run out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Elder Narsh isn't really a great Diabolos target anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But if, like, I don't know. Elder Narsh, like, is a card I've always want to like, but you got to run, like, 3 of it. It's a dark card if you're playing it, or, like, else why you're playing it. He's running Cam, too. Like, that's super top-heavy.
Yep.
I think a lot of the cards he's running are good cards. I think, like, if this was a deck he brought to a tournament, you would still have a hard time.
Yeah, unless he was the one piloting it, I think, And, it says here he won 4 matches off of Paradise, but it also bit him in the ass once, too.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, and I'm not saying you can't get top 8 at a tournament with Fire. I think you can at a big tournament. I mean, I just did it at the Keyblade Cup, but I mean at like a Crystal Cup level. I think right now Fire is good enough to get top 8.
Sure.
I think it's probably got to be the Mono Fire Wool deck though. I think that deck's really good actually. Like the more I play it, I think it's pretty good.
What, the Mono Fire, the Wall deck?
Yeah, I mean it's hard to deal with.
I think that's the better way to play Mono Fire right now.
Yeah, I think the issue is like if that deck ever somehow became like top tier, it's really easy to counter.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But when it flies under the radar a little bit and it can deal with the meta decks that are out, I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's a very, very spiky kind of deck, which I'm all about. Obviously, the big hard hitting question: will there ever be Final Fantasy Spirits Within cards? That's my man. Whoever asked that question, we're talking ace reporter on the streets. Get this man a job at the Post. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. They said it's possible, but don't count on it.
Yeah. They asked him if Wind was too strong. He said he doesn't think it is right now. And then he cited that Mono Ice and Mono Lightning have seen good results. I assume he's talking about Japan.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Wind's too strong, but I don't think it's like in a place where the game is like super hurt by it.
Yeah, because it's not winning everything, but it's always in the conversation.
Yeah, and then they said we might at some point get the Opus 3 starter alternate cards in foil, which could be pretty cool. Obviously, like probably not anytime soon, but
yep, that'll be good. And then I know they mentioned briefly talking about Kageyama's a big fan of the combination cards in chapters, and I'd love to see those, like to see a Steiner Beatrix or a Lightning Snow or a Sabin Edgar or something really fun like that, where we could have those kinds of cards, those faces together on one card that have a really dope ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think those cards are cool, but I'd rather see items first than that. But I mean, maybe
there's a lot of time left for sure.
Yeah, there was one thing that kind of bummed me out a little bit where you got asked a question about like using the damage zone and healing, and he said they don't have any plans to use that. I think that they could print a few cards that do something without them being broken. Like, I think the Phoenix Down idea that we had, if no one knows, I don't know if we've ever mentioned it on the cast before. I feel like we have. But,
but make it like a light item that it's an EX burst, and when it hits your damage, you pretty much just remove it from the game instead.
Yeah, and you can't cast it. Like, it's literally only in your deck to hit off the top. Otherwise, it sits in your hand, and you can't do anything unless you play like Poo Poo or something to discard it. Like,
exactly. So it's super balanced, but like when it flips off the top, if it's like that 7th point of damage, you're like, yeah, I'm alive.
And I guess you could do some cool stuff too. You could put like Tilica, right, and use it for CP if you have to. But like that, I mean, if you're playing that deck at that point, I feel like that's a good thing for the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think it could be cool. I mean, if you're running 3 of that, there's a chance that you probably never hit it off the top in some games, so it's like pretty, you know, high. It's like a high risk card, I think.
Yeah, but I think it'd be a card that's pretty fair, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But overall, man, I think it looked like it was a really solid experience. Like I said, as far as really the only negative I can think of is, and it just has to do with it being a one-day event, and obviously this is the first one, so you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. I think for it being a one-day event, just from what I've seen, it looked like it was a really good time. Everybody who was there was really invested in the event. Even the guys on the Hobby Japan side, like apparently everybody had a great time. If there is anything, and who knows, next year it could be more grand than it was this year, and they could be a 2-day thing. Just having all the events at the same time and not really, you know, if you're going to have a stream and just showing the boss fight stuff, I think that's a little bit of a misstep. But it being a one-day event, I 100% get it.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens next year, and I think I know I'll be there next year. Just to, like you said at the top of this, the timing and the announcement of it just wasn't in the cards, you know, especially with, you know, right slam in the middle of Petite Cup season. But yeah, I think just overall it looked like it was a really good experience, and I can't wait to kind of pick Steven, Lord Byron, and Muhammad's brain on how the event went and stuff like that, just from like an inside perspective. But, you know, that's all the news we got. So, you know, next week we'll be back with some fresh Petite Cup news and, you know, whatever other spoilers pop up this week. So our main topic that we want to just kind of, you know, touch on here, you know, we talked about this during the Cactar correspondence this past week, and the question, let me go ahead and pull it up so I can get the exact wording, unless you have it pulled up already, Adam.
I can pull it up.
Yeah, you're probably fast. You're quicker on the draw than I am, even though you're dying over there.
All right, I always have the site up anyways.
Yeah, and it was the very first question about the archetypes.
Yeah, I made these questions, so yeah.
Yep.
It was based on the first set of spoilers, but now we can include the spoilers that we've seen. I guess. For Opus 8, what archetype are you most looking forward to playing first?
Man, I'll go first on this one. So I think just, you know, initially my thought, and this was just based off the first crop of spoilers, and I even said this. Mono Earth was one of the ones I was really, you know, just really, you know, honed in on because I saw Gladio, I saw Noct, I was really, really happy about that. But now that I've seen Archangel and Tifa and, you know, even Laswell, like, I think Fire Ice or Fire Earth is really where I'm gonna, you know, really focus my attention. I'll probably have a Mono Earth deck built, but I think Fire Ice is just the more cards I see. Because I think Archangel is going to be a superstar in Fire Ice. You know, and now that you've kind of brought up the potential for that 7-drop with Phoenix, that could be a good thing too. That could potentially be a finisher there if you just run, you know, 3 Phoenixes and maybe like 2 or 3 of that card. Because one of the things too, as unoptimal as it is you could always pitch a Phoenix to grab the card off of a Meath or something. But that's kind of counterproductive. But you could always, that option's always there if you have another 7-drop card that you could get that thing out. Obviously, Laswell, I think, is a very, very powerful card. I just feel like you're making a statement if on turn 1 you go Archangel, Sage, Haste.
Yeah, I mean,
they've taken 2 damage before they even get a chance to play a card. You know what I mean?
But like the other thing is, so you basically just spent. I mean, this is just a counter argument, right? So you just spent 6 CP, right? Because you overpaid for Archangel. I would 100% overpay for any 3CP summon to kill that thing at that
Yeah,
point.
if you've got it.
Yeah.
If you've got it.
But it's gonna set. The thing is, like, it's gonna set you behind more than it's gonna set me behind. That's all. I guess that's what I'm saying. But
it really depends because like, it worked a lot during Opus 5. People are still doing it now in some decks. Do I think it's like the real alpha play it was back then? No, not at all. But it is something that if you see it come out first and they follow up with the Sage, like, you better have an answer or you're going to 2 right off the bat. And then at that point, do you play a forward? Do you stick with your deck's game plan and play backups, or do you hope to draw into removal if you didn't have it there? Like, it is a play. Yeah, it does set you behind on resource. It's a very all-in play. 100%. It's very all-in.
I will say back in Opus 4 and even the beginning of Opus 5, it was less risky because the removal that we have now that's dealing with this card didn't exist then. You're also not overpaying unless you played lock turn 1, and you're getting a card out of their hand if it hits, as opposed to just 1 extra point of damage, which I actually think is more important early game. Like, the card that Genesis and Lock are getting out of the opponent's hand is probably more important than the 1 extra point of damage that you got in. Now, if Archangel hits twice, though...
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, they need... The first turn is like a statement. They better have an answer on the next turn, or they're going to 4 right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets in twice, it's obviously like you've netted way more than you would have netted off the old play. I just think there's more answers to him. Like, for me, the more ideal play would be turn 1 Godot, pass, see what they do.
Same thing. We talked about that yesterday. If you have turn 1 Godot and that guy's the follow-up, get fucked. You're in such a good place.
Yeah, because then...
100%.
Because if you could go turn 1 Godot backup into tap a backup, pitch a card, play this guy, and they had no answer, you already realized they don't have an answer because they would have killed Godot. Like, Godot would have died. Godot, at that point, is like... The biggest punish there is, like, if you're playing against Mono Lightning, right, and they have the Alcid turn 1, then you're going to feel really bad about that turn 1 Godot. But if you're not playing that, everybody else has to overpay for removal.
Yep.
And then and I don't care what they're playing. Like, if they don't play a 10k, I'm still playing Archangel and I'm swinging. Like,
exactly, that puts them at 3 damage. So, again, like that card just shortens the clock, and if you get that guy rolling early, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, at that point, they're at 4 damage. Now, if they start drawing into the removal and starting to stabilize, sure, that's a thing. And that's why, like, those plays are a little bit all in. Like, the Godot play is not nearly as all in as the first turn, whatever. But then, like, if you start playing that, and then you're like, you start playing a normal mid-range, you kind of fire ice where you're playing some backups, then you maybe drop a Laswell to get their guys out, and then you finish with that thing. Ugh. Like, I think fire ice might be in a good spot. But again, I say that every set, and I'll try it, but I won't believe it until I see it.
Yeah, I think CP efficiency is a huge deal in this game. I guess that's
right. And I think with Fire Ice, it's really hard to do that because there's not a lot of card generation in that. Because the backups in those decks are typically more reactive. Like, they're either going to do damage to something, or they're going to give one of your guys haste, or you are searching for a card. But these aren't play. You don't have like a good like turn 1 backup, like drop and pass kind of backup, if that makes sense. Maybe if you're running Red Mage or Ninja, but again, like, those backups weren't really in the deck except for maybe like a 1 of each. But
yeah, I mean, maybe it changes too. I mean,
I really think it does, and I'm glad you said it that way because I legitimately think it does. And then the other archetype, like I mentioned, Earthfire is, Earthfire's been one of my favorite combinations ever since I started playing the game. Ever since the Kefka Cup when we were playing the Saban Unbreakable deck. I think the Final Fantasy stuff, the Final Fantasy VII stuff, I think it looks really good on paper, and I wouldn't mind trying to build a deck around that. I think that's a good segue to let you start talking about it. I think the Tifa's good. I think Light Cloud in this situation is good, or even any one of the Fire Clouds, the 3CP one with Brave, I think is good. The new Earth one, I think, is excellent. Maybe this is a deck for Opus 4 Barrett. I just don't know. I'll let you start talking about that one because that's one I want to try as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to try that. That's probably going to be the first thing out the gate. Is to make some sort of Final Fantasy VII standard deck work. In order for me to play Fire, the only problem is I think I'm going to need to see more Fire 7 cards that's not that 5 CP Cloud. I want to run Zangian with Tifa, but I think I would rather run the Earth Cloud over the other clouds right now, unless I'm going to play the Light Cloud and maybe try to like be a little bit more bursty. I mean, 100% Vincent's and Yuffie are in the deck.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways. It's going to require a lot of testing, I think, to see if it's either going to be just straight Earth with like a 7 package, because you still have Jesse there.
Yep.
Or Fire Earth with more 7 stuff. But is the payoff worth it for me to run things like Zanga and like Fire Cloud, like Zach maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, because my initial thought there is because 7 has specific backups that don't go anywhere, I think it makes the backup line a little crowded. And I think that's going to be one of the hard parts of the deck, too.
Yeah, I do think, though, maybe 5 CP Zach's really good there, right? Like, you play 5 CP Zach. If it dies, you go get the Earth Cloud. You play it onto the field. If you play the Zach, then maybe you could run, like, 1 or 2 Light Clouds, too. But that might get too clunky. I'm not sure. And then you have, like, other stuff. Like, I mean, and you still have Jesse in that deck, obviously, too. The only thing that sucks is if you do that, you can't play backup Zach. So I don't know. It gets a little weird. But I'm excited to try it. Other than that, yeah, I mean, I definitely want to play the Archangel. I don't think he just fits right into the Warrior of Light deck, actually, as funny as it sounds.
I don't think he does either.
Because you want to be, like I said, CP efficiency earlier, and the reason stuff was mainly even costed is because everything's pretty CP efficient. You really only want to play Luneth in that deck off of wall most of the time, like after he dies. Maybe if you off one backup. Most of the time
you're pitching him for CP, it feels like.
Yeah, unless I'm off one backup and maybe I just need the extra 1K. But I do think like maybe a deck with him and Lon, maybe like a slower deck. I know people are like looking at this card and they're like, oh, I'm going to kill people really quick. But I actually really like him in like a slower deck where like you're forced to either choose to use your removal on this guy or Lon maybe. And maybe if they get one more target, like one more card that's like not quite on their power level, but like right there that he like has to kind of be removed. That could be good. I mean, even like in Windfire or something, this guy could be pretty nutty. Protect him with your Stola or something.
Absolutely. Then you can even start getting cheeky and go back to the old Zemus no unblockable nonsense.
Yeah, you could try that. I
don't think it's good
probably
enough,
won't.
Personally.
And then I mean, maybe you're playing the new Marsh with that card too. Get it off the top and play it, and that sounds pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I do want to try something summon heavy. I mean, they're trying to push it more. I think the Ico that they showed is actually pretty good. I mean, 5 CP, you're gonna get 2 cards. So essentially, it's a 1. I don't know if it's good enough to run Braska, but like, something I might try.
Well, that might also it might be worth running in something like, I don't know, maybe like an Ice Water deck where you're already generating a lot of cards, and then you can just play that, search for a summon. It pretty much acts like as another Viking, essentially, that you can, it's a little bit pricier, yeah, but you want it to die so you can draw that card off of it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just makes a great Famfrit target.
Yeah, and I mean, I really don't care if they want to Diabolus that, like,
have
absolutely. At it, you got it, like. And then I think we forgot like the Turks, right? If they get enough cards, like I'll probably try that too.
Yeah, there's a lot going on that I want to try. Like I said, I think Fire Earth and Fire Ice are going to be. And granted, again, Fire Ice is where I started every set because I want to be able to play Sabin and Celis and all those cards again. But I think the direction it's going, especially if we start to see more Brave Exvius cards, I think Brave Exvius is going to be what dominates that archetype now. Because even now, like if you're playing Fire Ice, it's typically like the waft stuff where it's a lot lower to the ground. You're playing Snow and stuff like that. So like the more mid-rangey cards, all the 6 cards just don't fit anymore.
Yeah, I still think even with all the Brave XP stuff, it's going to be hard to fit the 6 cards in the Fire Ice deck. Yeah. They're fine in Mono Ice right now, though. I think they're fine in Mono. Yeah. Or even Ice Earth. I think they're fine there, too.
No, I agree with that 100%. And I think that's just where they shine. Because I think, truth be told, as the cards, if Fire goes to more of like a mid-rangey kind of thing, I think you play Lon over Sabin every time, just because Lon they're equally as slow, but Lon just does more if he lives a turn.
Sure, yeah. I mean, he is a bit more. He's a lot slower than Sabin though. Like you're not just gonna jam Lon off like 1 backup or 2 backups.
No, hell no. And that's actually funny because that's one of the things I talk about in the video coming out next week, the Change My Mind video. So that's actually one of the big negatives of him is that he is way slow because you have to be established. But I think if you're playing like that mid-rangey Fire deck, like that slower Fire deck, that once you are established and you play Lon and then you follow up with Archangel or another like real threatening kind of card, your opponent's going to have to pick and choose which one they remove, because whatever they don't remove could potentially just take over the game at that point.
Yep. I mean, I agree. I have a lot of ideas for Modifier. I feel like the Cloud and the Archangel are gonna probably shake things up a little bit and maybe make a more mid-rangey Modifier deck that's actually good. Which
I agree with that.
I would probably enjoy more. I enjoy playing the Warrior of Light deck, but it's a little bit fast for what I like to do, generally speaking.
Yeah, you typically like playing slower, control-y kind of strategies. I mean, that's just the type of player you are. Whereas I'm fine playing Warrior of Light decks because I think I just like turning shit sideways.
So it is good for that.
But overall, man, I think just from these 10 to 15 cards we've seen already, I think there's a lot that's already starting to shake things up, and I can't wait to see as more spoilers hit. I'm just super curious as to how these archetypes are going to shake up. And dude, I don't know. Do you think these new cards are potentially good enough to push like the big boys at least to the side for a little bit?
I think that's going to happen regardless because it's a new set and people are going to try new things. Now, in the long term, I don't know. I like what I'm seeing so far. But I mean, I don't think those decks are going to go anywhere. Maybe someone could knock them off the throne a little bit, but I just the other decks are just too efficient, I think, is the problem. And once they get to the point where they're doing things, it feels kind of unfair, I guess. But it requires setup. They're both pretty slow decks, which is why I think that Warrior Light deck is good because it gets under them, and then when they try to respond by playing forwards, it gets over them.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a good counter meta right now. It's I think the big doofy mono earth deck kind of does the same thing, where you just pressure early and they're usually dead before they can set up the way they want to, and they're having to play a suboptimal game against your 10K your 10K 2 drops. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, but if they get set up, they probably just win, right? That's just the nature of the deck. So. Oh,
that's just the nature of aggro decks in general. You just kind of hit a wall where I had to win a turn ago, and now it's not going to happen.
Yep.
But overall, man, I'm really excited. I think every set of spoilers that they've shown so far has been really, really solid. There's nothing. Some of these cards I don't like, but that doesn't mean they're terrible cards. Like the Lightning Warrior of Darkness from the last set of spoilers. While I don't think she's great, if there's a deck that fits her in it, I think she'll be fine. The 7 CP Ice Forward, I think if there's a deck that she belongs in, she'll be fine. Same thing with Squall. While I don't think he's great, I think there potentially is a place for him in a deck somewhere. And that's just one of the just the best things about this game is as new sets come out, new archetypes, new styles of play get created essentially. So I'm gonna be interested to see where it goes. I think Opus 8's already off to a strong start as far as a constructed format. I'm curious to see how it'll fare in a limited format because I think a card like Archangel being just an uncommon is maybe a huge mistake.
I'm more worried about removal than him. I mean,
that's what I'm saying, because everybody's going to have him, and the removal just doesn't seem that great right now. But we'll see.
If the removal is just one summon per color and all of it's like this, limited's not going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be if it's like this, limited is going to be less fun than if you're not having fun with snow and stuff now. If all the summons are like this, you're going to have less fun.
Yep, because you can play that guy off one backup. You can't really use your summons off one backup, so that guy's just going to kill you in 3 turns.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that each color is going to get 2 summons again like we normally get, and this will be like a rotation of these, which is fine, but then we actually get other summons that are more playable and limited.
Or at least some abilities that break something, you know what I mean? More stuff like the 5 CP Cloud, something that'll just be
expensive. Yeah, even that's expensive in late game, right? So if they do, they need to start showing it. I think because right now, from what I've seen, it's going to be hard to kill certain forwards because a lot of this removal, a lot of these damaging effects are S abilities. So we'll say, and a lot of these there's some really big bodies that are showing up too. So we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited to kind of see as it unpacks, and
I hope everybody had a great time at FanFest. But I think that's going to do it for us today. If you guys have an archetype y'all are looking to play, drop us a comment in the on whatever platform you listen on. Let us know what you're excited to play just based on what you've seen so far, and let us know your opinions on some of the spoilers. We'd love to hear the feedback. We'd love to kind of have that conversation.
Yeah, and
with that being
also I just wanted to say if you listen to us on iTunes or whatever, even if you don't, it'd be appreciated. Like iTunes reviews, it would be nice.
Oh yeah, hit that purple icon, man. We love it.
It'll push us like up the chain there, I guess, if you want to put it that way. Just tell us like what you think. Maybe we'll read them on the air, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and check out our other videos. I know we just put out the meta call the first episode of the Great Meta Calls featuring the Opus 6 Leviathan. Give that a watch. Adam did a great job covering why that card is good, right? Why that card potentially could be good right now in the meta. And then next week we've got the Change My Mind video. Finally, we're talking about Lon, which it almost sounds like this card might become a little more relevant here in the near future, which is really, really good. And, just be on the lookout for more content from us. We got the New York Petite Cup. I'll be there. I'll be giving you guys updates. Whether I do good or bad, I'll definitely be posting updates for everybody. And then, then we'll, start finalizing details and everything for the Petite Cup, and then be on the lookout for information on the Crystal Cup in July. So there's a lot coming down the pipe, it sounds like, Adam. But with that being said, I'm going to let you rest up. You don't sound all that hot.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go play Wargroove and lay down.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But as always on Sunday, I've got to get ready for work. But that's okay. Adam, any other parting thoughts before we wrap it up today?
I think that's it.
Cool. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
See you later.
Cue the Sarah McLachlan music.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening once again to the RVA Returners podcast. If you like this content and you want to hear more, check us out on YouTube at RVA Returners, and make sure you follow us on SoundCloud and check us out on Google Play and iTunes.